The bookies are expecting Bournemouth to be in trouble. Leeds' results were properly chaotic the final few games before the World Cup. Forest, you would say, have looked far more viable points-wise since Steve Cooper made that perceived defensive tweak. At Wolves, big managerial change and a big transfer window coming up, but have they left themselves too much to do? Here is the return of the Premier League on Boxing Day. Let's have a look at who is at the wrong end of the table and figure out who is most likely to be returning to the Championship at the end of the season. The state of play as we return, if the music stopped right now and the season ended, it would be Wolves, Southampton and Forest for the drop. Above that line, though, within just 3 points are Everton, West Ham, Leeds and Bournemouth. Get involved down there in the comments. Give us your 3 names for the drop. Who's going to be returning to the Championship? Speaking of the Championship, the first thing to say about the current picture is it's fairly interesting in respects of the fact that there's only one team who was promoted last year in the bottom 6. It can get quite predictable down there. Of course, things can change quickly, but could we see a more seasoned Premier League name making the drop? Already 4 out of 10 of the clubs currently in the bottom half of the Premier League have changed manager. You tend not to do that when things are going right. I don't really see Unai Emery replacing Stevie Gerrard at Villa as really being pertinent to the relegation conversation on the basis of their expectations and his strong start. The Bournemouth change also wasn't quite your normal club struggling sack manager type thing, more of a falling out there with Scott Parker, although it is worth saying that this is Gary O'Neill's first job. Interesting quirk to be thrown straight in that position in job number 1. The really interesting ones are the gambles made by Southampton and Wolves right down in the bottom 2. Huge fan of what Nathan Jones did at Luton, but it's going to be tough for him at St Mary's, going straight in at the deep end. At Wolves, big managerial change and a big transfer window coming up, but have they left themselves too much to do? Julen Lopetegui is in, big pedigree, and we think Brazilian Matheus Cunha is arriving on loan with an obligation to buy in the summer, whether Wolves go down or not. Probably shows you that Fosun are not going to be messing around in terms of keeping the Wolves in the Premier League. Let's have a look at the current trends then for these teams. And for all you pedants in the comment, yes, I understand we've just had a break, so it's not really form, but which teams are currently trending up and currently trending down in those lower reaches. Taking the last sort of 8 game sample, big trends up for Leicester up 7, Palace up 5 and Aston Villa up 3. They all seem to have powered away from trouble as things stand. West Ham are also +2. They've got a big pedigree as well for being way higher. Forest are also +1 over the last 8 games. Forest, you would say, have looked far more viable points-wise since Steve Cooper made that perceived defensive tweak. You know, another +1 over the next 8 games and things are looking all right for Cooper and Forest. Trending down, well, Bournemouth have dropped 2 places in the last 8 games, but in that period they did still hit 1 point per game. And although there's not much margin, the projections are still okay for them surviving. Wolves have dropped 3 places in the last 8. They've been the worst team in the league over that period. But can you explain it away? They were essentially managerless for pretty much all that period. Everton and Leeds have both dropped 4 places over the last 8 games. Everton are worth keeping an eye on there, 5 defeats in 7. Leeds' results were properly chaotic the final few games before the World Cup, but they were also coming from a lofty perch after their excellent start. But again, they have tracked Leeds under a point per game, well under in fact, since late August. Southampton -5. It's Southampton who've dropped the most places the quickest. Hassan Hootel unravelled, Jones in. They're hoping for the bounce. Sometimes it's just about getting above the line and putting the pressure on the 3 teams below the line. So let's have a little look at the next batch of fixtures and see if anyone's going to make a move as we go into the second half of the season. Not a great deal stands out, I have to say. Everton's fixtures probably look the best. 3 direct rivals coming up, and they play 2 of them at Goodison. West Ham also have 3 direct rivals, but only 1 of them at home. Leeds go back in with Manchester City and Newcastle, which might cause them a bit of negative momentum. As I say, nothing looks absolutely horrendous, but what we do know is those head-to-head games, it's about avoiding draws. Get the wins in those ones. And what about the January transfer window? That can often be key, and as we already mentioned, it looks like Wolves are going to go for it. You also wouldn't rule out Nottingham Forest having a nice little bit of a spend with Mr. Marianakis in control there. Anything is possible in terms of the transfer market. Might be a little bit of movement across the board. Maybe Nathan Jones will get a bit of a chance to shape Southampton, given they brought him in before the window. And Leeds, they seem to be focused on the Jesse Marsch style of player, and I'm sure that list extends longer than the ones they've brought in already. The 2 that really fascinate me are Bournemouth and Everton. Bournemouth have just had new investment, but it's so close to the transfer window with a manager that they didn't install. You do wonder how much will be made available to Gary O'Neill, given the short length of time between this kind of takeover and the January window opening. And as it pertains to Everton, well, we've heard a lot of stuff about FFP there. Are they able to spend anything? So maybe this is more of a case of who can't spend than who can. And what are our friendly bookmakers saying? Well, first of all, remember, this is a liability, not a probability, but the favourites, and odds on indeed, Nottingham Forest, still favourites, 8-15. The bookies are expecting Bournemouth to be in trouble. They are 4-6 and still odds on to make the drop. Wolves, who are bottom, 10-11. Odds against Everton and Southampton, 13-8. And Leeds are all the way out at 4-1. Not necessarily fancied at this point to go down in the betting markets. My take then, for what it's worth, I think West Ham are too good, I have to say. So I'll rule them straight out. I think they'll go up the table in the second half of the season. My boldest position is I do think there'll be a turnaround at Wolves. I think Lopetegui plus spend will see them go clear. As much as I've loved Nathan Jones and the job he's done at Luton, I'm not sure they're going to be above that mid 30-point safety marker. So my first one I'm going to tip to go down will be Southampton, but they would be all set with Jones if they do to bounce straight back. Everton, well, they're a bit of a train wreck, aren't they? But they always seem to do well at home in those head-to-head games. The Goodison crowd roaring them on. So I expect that'll be the pattern and they'll get out of it again. Bournemouth, they've been excellent so far and exceeded my expectations. Very happy about that, but I do think they're at capacity with where they are. So do I see them improving or maintaining? Possibly not. I do think a trend down is coming, and given they are pretty much at capacity, in my opinion, I think they will be one of the 3 to drop. It's an experienced boss, and I'm assuming that there's not going to be a big influx of money with the new investment in January. Sorry, Bournemouth fans, Bournemouth to go. That leaves me with the very unenviable pick of either Leeds or Forest for the final spot, and that could be really tight and go very, very late into the season. Probably in the dugout, I think I would take Steve Cooper over Jesse Marsch, even though Marsch did, on the last day, get Leeds away from trouble last season. Both should be able to leverage those brilliant stadiums and loud fan bases to grab points at home. Maybe away might be a little bit tricky. Look, I really can't call this. Gun to my head, I'd probably just edge with Leeds right now, but no doubt we'll revisit this and I'll take a different view later down the line. Go on then, let's commit to that. Southampton, Bournemouth and Forest right now are my 3 to go down. And it's over to you in the comments. Let me know your 3 and why. And let's try and go for a nice, balanced, sensible discussion as opposed to an emotional tantrum. Normal trigger warning here with these type of videos. 3 teams are going to go down. That's a fact, like it or not. I really, really hope the team that you, commenter, support survives. I really do. Just remember here, the competition is on the pitch. It's your club versus the others in the Premier League, not you versus me in the comments on YouTube. And it's Christmas, for God's sake. Those are my 3 to go down at this moment in time, as Gary Neville likes to repeatedly say. Who might be coming the other direction, though, and joining the wonderful world of the Premier League? Well, the current leaders in the Championship are Burnley and Sheffield United. Check out my deep dives on both sides, looking to return to the top tier.